A topsy-turvy Southern 500 sets the tone for what is sure to be an unpredictable NASCAR Cup Series playoff. How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric. Welcome to Out of the Groove post-Darlington edition. Just got done watching the Southern 500, which now doubles as the Cup Series playoff opener. One of my favorite races every single year. A sellout crowd as well. There is so much information to go over tonight. We will put this race on the Groovy Gauge at the end. We'll look at the playoff grid, discuss each playoff driver, how they fared this evening. But I think we should start with the winner, Kyle Larson. At long last, Kyle Larson is a Southern 500 winner, a Darlington winner. Coming into tonight, I think he had 3 second-place finishes and 2 third-place finishes at Darlington, but he never found victory lane. I was there 2 years ago in the bleachers. I never left my seat. I saw Kyle Larson ride that wall pre-Ross Chastain, almost beat Denny Hamlin to the line, but come up just short. I was there this past spring, not the Southern 500, the throwback race when Kyle Larson was battling for the lead on a late race restart when he and Chastain got together. He's been so close so many times. I'm happy for Kyle Larson to finally break through, and no better time. This team has been inconsistent this year. They actually lead all playoff drivers with 6 DNFs coming into tonight at least. But they also had 2 wins. This is now their 3rd win of the season. They also won the All-Star race at North Wilkesboro, but that was the very beginning of the summer or late spring, depending on how you look at it. That was months ago. They dominated North Wilkesboro. Since then, they've been kind of inconsistent. So no better way to start the playoffs than with a win in the Southern 500, a crown jewel. Kyle Larson and that 5 team are now the only ones locked into the round of 12. So they can more or less rest easy these next 2 weeks. Obviously, they're still going for stage wins, race wins, more playoff points that will carry them through the next 2 rounds. But for all intents and purposes, they can take a step back and chill for a couple of weeks. Larson drove a great race at the end as well. I know he had a massive clean air advantage. Darlington is notoriously narrow. As long as Larson rode that wall inches from the outside safer barrier, there was no chance Tyler Reddick or Chris Buescher or William Byron were going to pass him. It was going to take a massive mistake on Larson's part to give them an opening. That's just how this track is, unfortunately. Now, I think Reddick maybe could have made a move. He admitted in his post-race interview that he was sort of calculating risks the whole time. He knew that a win would be huge, but he also knew that finishing second, collecting an immense number of points, was almost just as huge as well. It was hard to risk all that. So maybe Reddick could have made a move on Larson, but it wasn't worth the risk in his eyes. Either way, Larson had an aero advantage, sure, but he also drove a near perfect final, 20, 30, 40 laps, however long that final run was. So he deserved the win, no doubt. Congratulations to Kyle Larson, Cliff Daniels, the whole 5 team. I want to back up a little bit because there were a couple other notable contenders, playoff drivers who saw their evenings get completely ruined in kind of goofy ways. First off, there's Denny Hamlin, who was the dominant car tonight. He won the Xfinity race yesterday. Tonight, he qualified on the front row, won stage 1, won stage 2, was leading in stage 3 when, during the first cycle of green flag pit stops, in stage 3, he pit a second time, believing he had a loose wheel. Cost Hamlin all of his track position. He went from first to 30th, a lap down. And to add insult to injury, the team radioed him multiple times that they couldn't find any evidence of a loose wheel. The gaslighting, my goodness, is very real. Something was definitely wrong on the 11 car. He came off pit road side by side with Reddick for the lead, or what was going to be the lead, and immediately started falling back. He got passed by Reddick. I think he got passed by 1 or 2 other cars, which we hadn't seen happen to Hamlin all day long, before he pulled it in, believing he had a loose wheel. So I don't know if he had a loose wheel or if something else was wrong, but something was certainly amiss. Whatever happened, it was goofy. It was a goofy way for Denny Hamlin to fall out of contention. We'll look at the playoff grid in just a few moments and see how badly this finish truly impacted him. But the other driver I want to mention is Kevin Harvick. Because after Hamlin's issue, Tyler Reddick assumed the race lead, but Kevin Harvick, who I think cycled out into 3rd, was charging and charging hard. After a few laps, I checked my screen and I realized he was running some of the fastest laps on the racetrack. Harvick drove up there and passed William Byron for second easily with like 68 laps to go. He was catching Reddick, who couldn't find a way around Ryan freaking Newman for the longest time. Finally, he did get by Newman, but so did Harvick. They were side by side, Harvick and Reddick, side by side, door to door, battling for the lead. Reddick was able to hold him off for the time being, but then the window opened for everyone to make their final stop. Kevin Harvick pulled down onto the apron to make his pit stop. Tyler Reddick, who was like a half second ahead of him, suddenly slowed in the middle of the racing groove, up against the wall, not even like a lane off. He was up against the wall in the racing groove, and he just hit the brakes. Suddenly, out of nowhere, gets rear-ended by Ryan Newman, crash breaks out, caution comes out just moments before Harvick hit the commitment line. So pit road was closed the moment the yellow came out. Harvick could not swerve in time. There was no physical possible way. No one has that kind of reaction time. He commits onto pit road. Damn, his race is all but ruined. That was goofy enough. Horrible break. Dumb move, first and foremost, from Tyler Reddick. I don't know if his crew chief saw Harvick pitting and panicked and said, hey, pit. And Reddick was just like, just panicked. I don't know if it was the crew chief who called Reddick to pit road late, or if Reddick just saw in his mirror what Harvick was doing and made the conscious decision to try and pit from the fourth lane. Either way, it was really dumb, really reckless. Like, it was bad. It was really, really bad. It screwed Harvick. Harvick's now slow on pit road, losing a few spots, track position. Even though the caution is out, guys are passing him on the racetrack. Harvick's team, though, to their discredit, could have limited the damage if they just rolled on through pit road and not stopped and changed tires. I don't know who's to blame. Maybe Rodney Childers told Harvick to keep going and Harvick didn't listen, didn't hear him. But the moment Harvick pulled in and had his 4 tires changed, they added fuel, the moment he actually pit the car, that's when he was under penalty. That's why he had to start at the tail end of the field. I think he only recovered to finish like 20th. If they hadn't pit the car, if they just rolled through pit road, I'm not sure where they would have blended with the field. I mean, everyone was under caution. Other guys were slowing down. So, he might have been 10th, 15th. If they hadn't pit the car, he would have restarted probably around 15th. Instead, they did pit the car, which meant he had to restart 25th, 30th behind everybody. That was a bad mistake by the 4 team themselves. But it was a goofy situation all around. He got screwed by Reddick and team being stupid, but then they kind of screwed themselves even further by pitting the car. It's complicated. It's a very complicated, very weird situation. It sucked though, because Kevin Harvick was charging hard. Final season, final Southern 500. I thought he had a legit shot at winning, especially once Hamlin fell out of contention. Anyway, there were a ton of goofy moves out there tonight. Alex Bowman, Daniel Suarez, whatever that was on the front stretch. Dale Jr. in the booth was trying to pass the blame off evenly. No, Alex Bowman made a late block low, thought he could get away with it a second time, and didn't. Wrecked himself and Daniel Suarez and Harrison Burton. You could hear Jeff Burton was very mad in the booth, I think, largely because his son got wrecked out of a race he was doing well in. Remember Harrison Burton? I think he finished top 10 at Darlington in the spring. He was really fast here. Had another decent run going tonight. Got caught up in Bowman and I guess Suarez's silliness. Kyle Busch didn't know he was 3 wide, pinched Todd Gilliland into the wall, and somehow that collected Denny Hamlin, Michael McDowell, and Christopher Bell, 3 playoff drivers. A lot of wackiness on track tonight. I want to look at the top finishers real quick. One non-playoff driver I'd like to highlight is 2-time Southern 500 winner Eric Jones, who ran top 10 in Legacy Motor Club Lame Duck equipment tonight. Finishes inside the top 10. Good for him. Also, he's not pictured here, but shout out to Carson Hocevar. Second ever Cup Series start, driving a 42 car that's been a joke this season. Gregson struggled in it. Josh Berry in a substitution role struggled in it as well. Grant Enfinger ran that one race. The 42 has been bad all year long. Carson Hocevar qualified 15th and finished 17th in his second ever Cup Series race. 20 years old. And he had a speeding penalty. He made a rookie mistake, sped on pit road, still finished 17th. Wacky race, but good for Carson Hocevar. But looking at some of these top finishers, Reddick comes home second. He was in contention, top 5 all night long. Chris Buescher, one of the hottest drivers in NASCAR today, finishes third. I thought he had a shot at winning this thing in the final laps. Byron entered this race tied for the points lead with Truex. He comes out with the top 5. Ross Chastain. I mentioned at the top of the show, this was a topsy-turvy race. It was a topsy-turvy night for several playoff contenders. Ross Chastain fired off slow. Like he was bad, like running 25th, a lap down, bad. They had an issue on pit road. That number 1 car looked terrible. Now, Maybe it was the sun setting fully, the track conditions changing a bit, but the one car, maybe came to Ross a little bit. They were able to get the free pass at the end of stage 1. And from there, they never really looked back. They were able to slowly but surely move their way forward. For Ross Chastain to come out of here with the top 5, considering how poorly they qualified, how poorly they ran, and the mistake they made on pit road to start the race, that's almost a win. That is almost a win. So a great recovery by Ross Chastain. Keselowski 6th, so both RFK Fords in the top 6 yet again. Man, when one's good, they're both good. That's the thing about RFK. You never see like Buescher 4th, Brad 14th, or 20th, or vice versa. They're always both top 5, both top 10. They're always right around each other. They're so consistent. I appreciate that. Bubba Wallace, in his first ever NASCAR playoff appearance, leads it off with a 7th place run. That's not bad at all, considering he too had a topsy-turvy night. Qualified 19th, I think, not great. Moved forward early on, but at the very end of stage 1, made a mistake racing Logano, overdrove it, spun out. Lost all of his track position, but he worked his way forward and more or less kept it clean the rest of the evening. He gets a top 10. Great perseverance, great recovery. I think that's going to be the word of the night, recovery. Not pictured here, but Ricky Stenhouse Jr. finished 16th. Not bad at all, especially considering he sped on pit road early in this race, was outside the top 30 a lap down. If a Hendrick car goes a lap down early, I think we all assume they'll recover. But when a GTG Doherty car goes a lap down outside the top 30 in stage 1, recovery is not guaranteed. But Ricky Stenhouse Jr. stuck with it, gets a respectable finish out of the evening, salvages points. It's the best that team could do. Now, there were some drivers and teams who did not recover, and this is where I want to flip this thing around and look at the updated playoff standings. 1 race in. 2 more races, and then 13th through 16th will be eliminated. But for now, this is what things look like. Kyle Larson obviously is locked in. William Byron with a cushy 45-point lead. 30-point lead for Tyler Reddick. Chris Buescher, Denny Hamlin still plus 27 despite finishing outside the top 20. That's thanks to the 20 stage points he earned, winning stage 1 and stage 2. But then there's Martin Truex Jr., who entered this race tied for the points lead with William Byron. He exits 6th. Still plus 25, which again shows you how important regular season success is. But boy, tonight was not pretty for Martin Truex Jr. He was my pick coming in. He was my championship pick coming in for 1, but he was also my pick to win this race. Things started off bad for them in qualifying, where Truex made a mistake, qualified 31st. Slowly but surely worked his way forward early into the 20s, then into the mid-teens. Then his pit crew left a wheel loose. Truex had to pit twice under green flag conditions, fell off the lead lap. He actually fell 2 laps down. He was able to unlap himself once thanks to fresher tires. He was able to take the wave round at the end of stage 2. So in some ways, Truex did recover. At one point, it looked like he was destined to finish 28th. Multiple times over the radio, Truex said, quote, "We're junk. My God, we suck." Those were just some of the things I heard over Truex's radio tonight. They stuck with it. Truex finished 18th. Not good at all, but could have been worse. So he's still plus 25. That's all things considered a pretty nice cushion to have. Kyle Busch, you can see there, is plus 20 points. He finished 11th, collected 5 stage points, but he started last. After issues yesterday led to an unapproved adjustment, they had to start at the rear. He passed a lot of cars early. It looked like at best they had maybe a 10th place car. He stayed out at the end of stage 2, was able to collect a few stage points during that 1 lap shootout. But then he and I think Ryan Blaney and a couple others pit at the start of stage 3. Guys like Larson, Hamlin at the time, they stayed out. They maintained their lead. So suddenly Busch, Blaney, they were back like 20th. 25th on the restart, lost all their track position. It was a questionable strategy call. They got some stage points as a result, but they lost all their track position, set themselves up very poorly for stage 3. Ryan Blaney, he recovered, I think, to 9th. Kyle Busch recovered to 11th, which is pretty great considering he also pounded the outside wall in the middle of stage 3, had to pit actually under green right before, I believe, the Reddick-Newman caution, the one that screwed Harvick. This is information overload. I'm just narrating the race at this point. That's an impossible job. So much happened tonight. I think I took more notes tonight than I have for any other race this season. Topsy-turvy. Just going to leave it at that. Maybe that's the word of the night. Recovery, topsy-turvy. Is that a word? That's like a saying? That's like a phrase? Maybe that's a word. Is that even English? Topsy-turvy? I don't even know. Wacky. Let me just use wacky. I like that word. It's one of my favorite words. It was a wacky race with wacky playoff implications. Behind Kyle Busch, you got Brad Keselowski. Decent night. Good for him. I'm glad Blaney was able to recover to ninth because he actually had a really good night. This is a guy who does not have a top 5 finish since his Memorial Day weekend Coke 600 win. Again, we're going back to May since Ryan Blaney's last top 5 finish. But tonight, he collected 10 total stage points. He comes back late to finish inside the top 10. He entered this race only 1 point to the good. He leaves 16 to the good. Big win tonight for Ryan Blaney. Ross Chastain plus 13, again, limited the damage by finishing inside the top 5. Joey Logano, another wacky night. He got damage early on, I think, when he hit the wall, and then he got kind of pinched into the wall by Bubba Wallace when he wrecked at the end of stage 1. So I think the toe was slightly bent in the 22. They were able to mostly repair it. He was never really that fast, but he finished 12th, so limited the damage, plus 3. On the cut line, holding on to the 12th spot after tonight, is Christopher Bell. And I haven't mentioned Christopher Bell yet tonight, but that number 20 team was arguably the biggest disappointment of the night. Qualified on the pole, was super fast yesterday, but the first time Bell brought that 20 car to pit road to the attention of his all-new, supposedly faster pit crew, they dropped the car off the jack. He went from running first to like 7th. He was able to mostly recover, get back into the top 5 pretty quick, but an early pit road mistake set the tone for the rest of the 20s evening. At the very end of stage 1, Bell then made a mistake driving too hard, got into the outside wall, bent a toe link. He still managed to collect a couple stage points in stage 1, but at the start of stage 2, the damage was apparent. He dropped outside the top 20, fell off the lead lap. They employed an aggressive pit strategy, didn't get a timely caution. Bell's race was effectively over. He then got caught up at the end in that ridiculous Busch-Gilliland crash. Just to add insult to injury, he's lucky to still be in the top 12, albeit by the slimmest of margins. But honestly, he should consider himself lucky because he didn't have that great of a regular season. He had enough top 15s and I guess top 10s to have a good regular season points finish, but that 20 car does not have a single top 5 since his Bristol dirt win. I'm sorry, he has one. Watkins Glen a couple weeks ago, I think he finished 3rd. But one top 5 since Bristol, which was, when was that? April, right? Was that Easter weekend? I had really high expectations for Christopher Bell this season, and I still do. There's 9 races to go. He made the championship for last year. I expect that team to make the next jump. They haven't been able to get out of their own way consistently this year. They're 1 point to the good. They should consider themselves lucky. Then you have Bubba Wallace, who entered this round -8, so he actually gained a few points on the cut line, rallied to finish inside the top 10. Honestly, good for him. Kansas next weekend, probably his best track in these entire playoffs. There's reasons to be optimistic. We already talked about what happened to Kevin Harvick. I think they shot themselves in the foot and made a bad situation worse, but the bad situation was not their fault. He's -2 points. Stenhouse doing all he can. He's only 4 points out. And currently at the bottom of the grid is Michael McDowell. They were slow, qualified, I think like 10th or 11th, but started fading through the field almost immediately. And then, of course, he was caught up in that wreck towards the end where he rear-ended Hamlin, I believe. So bad opening night for Michael McDowell. Felt for him too, because especially after yesterday, I thought he had decent speed. I was optimistic. But that's a look at the playoffs after the first race. There are 2 races to go in this first round, and then the points will reset once again to however many playoff points each driver has collected this season. But we've got Kansas next week, then the Bristol night race the Saturday night after that. So 2 very exciting tracks coming up. Should be 2 really great races. I wonder what other wackiness the playoffs have in store for us. Before we go, let's put this race on the groovy gauge, the Cookout Southern 500. 75% for me. I thought the racing was good. It was a long race. We expect that with the Southern 500, made a little bit longer by the lights failing in the inside of turns 3 and 4. Pay the power bill, Darlington. Come on. But no, besides that, it was a good race. Some of the wackiness rubbed me the wrong way. I hated to see Harvick taken out the way he was. Taken out of contention, I should specify. And the finish. It was cool to see Reddick, Larson hanging it out, scraping the outside wall, and honestly finding speed doing that. Like, that was cool. But it was also a little painful knowing that Reddick had at least as good, if not a slightly better car, and couldn't do much with Larson as long as Larson continued to run the dominant lane. Some of that is the car, for sure. These cars are very aero-dependent, but some of that is Darlington. Darlington has such a narrow groove that it's hard, no matter what car we're talking about, to find that clean air. This has been an issue with Darlington well before the next gen ever hit the track. So I'm going to go 75%. It was a very good race. Was it an amazing all-timer? No. Did it have a few fun moments, interesting moments? Absolutely. Did it have a few kind of frustrating moments? Sure. 75% for me, though. I thought it was a very good race, a very solid playoff opener. Let me know what you thought of tonight's Cookout Southern 500 down in the comment section below, and let me know how your favorite driver did or how your favorite playoff driver did. How are you feeling about your favorite driver's point situation going into these next couple of weeks? Let me know down in the comments below. But I think I've touched on all the big notes I wanted to. Yeah, I don't think I've taken this many notes for a single race all season. That's how you know it was wacky. But thank you all so much for watching this video. Leave a like if you enjoyed. Be sure to hit that subscribe button somewhere down below if you're new to the channel and you love NASCAR. We do this every week. We talk NASCAR almost every day. And thank you, as always, to my Patreon supporters. I truly appreciate your generous support. Have a wonderful rest of your Labor Day weekend, y'all. I will see you again very, very soon. Thanks again for watching.